We've talked a lot about tax recently on Bonkers Economics. First of all, we had the wealth tax with these images here. So this was the wealth tax we thought was achievable, and this is the total of government spending. So you can see that it's a pretty small part of the total. And yet here we've got the same wealth tax and we've got individual little bits of government spending, and we can see it could do a great deal. So that's the great debate about a wealth tax. Is it just a drop in the ocean, or is it a significant sum that can make a real difference? And then we talked about another sort of tax, which is the tax that we pay for things that we pay for that we don't really necessarily want. And that's in the context of this image here, which shows the structure of the UK economy. And here we've got the extractive activities like rents, house prices, financial and business services, that sort of thing. And here at this end, we've got productive activities like agriculture and manufacturing and construction and things like that. And this activity here, this is really a tax on this activity here, because in theory, at least, all this activity is supposed to be making this activity possible. But because it extracts so much wealth, so much money from the economy, it's actually making it harder. It's operating, as I say, like a tax on everything we do. So given that tax is the subject of the moment, so to speak, I thought we would look at this week's image at where tax comes from, or where some of the tax comes from at least, and that's what we've got here. So let's start with the image and what's sort of going on in it. Well, you can see that it's inherently a bit unstable. We've got this big pink block here, which is sort of falling slightly off the edge of the foundations below. And then we've got much smaller blocks down here. And what these represent here are manufacturing industry. So this is not obviously the whole of the economy. We've got masses more things that would be going on, such as education, health, construction. But manufacturing industry is a good indication of the productive side of the economy. It's a key example of the productive activity in the economy. And what we've got here are two things. We've got, first of all, the number of people working in manufacturing industry, which is about 2.6 million. And here we've got the amount of money on average that they each pay in tax. And that's about £8,500. Now that includes national insurance, both employers and employees. It includes income tax, and it includes corporation tax paid by the companies for which they work. So there we are, 2.6 million people, each paying about £8,500 in tax. And the boxes have been adjusted to be the same size so that we can see how they relate to the information up here. And this blue box, well, that is the number of people who work in financial services. And that's quite a lot fewer. It's 1.1 million, which is why the box obviously is a bit smaller. And then what have we got in pink? Well, wait for it. This is the amount of tax per person, the £80,000 in tax per person that is paid by people who work in financial services. These 1.1 million people are paying each, on average, £80,000 a year in tax, income tax, national insurance and corporation tax. So it's an enormous difference. The basic manufacturing industry here, and then this sort of colossal financial services activity up here, and all the tax that they pay. So if you're the government and you're looking at this image, what are you thinking? Presumably you're thinking, well, we really like all this tax that is paid in the financial services sector, so we want more people here. We want a bigger financial services sector so they can pay more tax. And we're not really that interested in manufacturing industry down here, because look, all these people here and the amount of tax they're paying is quite small. And there's a sort of logic in that if you're the government, because tax is something you care about, you're trying to get in more tax because you think that the tax you get in is in some way related to what you can spend in the economy, and spending is what politicians like to do. But that's missing the fundamental reality of this situation, which is all this tax that's being paid here by this small number of people. That's tax that's being paid out of the money that the financial service industry is extracting. So this tax that we talked about here, where this end of the economy, the extractive end of the economy, is effectively levying a tax on the productive end of the economy by extracting large amounts of money from it. That sort of tax is all being paid to the people who are paying the tax here. So what we need to remember is that this massive great block of tax that's being paid here, that's only a proportion, about a quarter or a third, of the amount of money that's being extracted from the productive economy by these financial services in the first place. So those financial services, they're operating as a sort of tax on the economy in themselves by extracting money, and then they are paying some of that money back in the form of real tax to the government. And the bottom line is that they're only paying a proportion of that, and so they're still winning. They're still extracting far more than they're putting back. So if the government were to follow through on the logic of that, if the government would say, yeah, we really do want more of these people, then what's going to happen is that more and more of the economy will be trying to extract money from the rest of the economy. And if this bit gets any smaller than it is, and let's face it, it's small enough already, if the manufacturing economy gets any smaller, then the place from which the money that can be extracted to fund all of this won't be there. So it won't be possible to continue to extract money in the way that these services have done so. And that's why in the image the whole thing is so sort of teetering on the balance. Because actually these are the solid foundations of the UK economy. Manufacturing industry and things like construction and things like agriculture, these are the heart of the economy. They are what really matter. They are the activities that produce what we want and need in our lives. So all of this is just froth on the top, and it can't exist without this. So if this shrinks any more, then this whole thing will begin to fall over. And that's what the image is telling us. It's saying, look, it looked great. It's all very impressive in one sense, but it's totally not solid. It's totally dependent upon this thing down here. And if this gets any smaller, then this lot is just going to fall away.